Namaste. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. What's up, y'all? Man, there's a lot going on this week. I thought about doing just a video about the stuff that's going on this week and then doing the general reading and then doing the love reading. And then I thought, well, people that tune into the general reading, at least the regulars, they know what it's about and they're tuning in for a particular reason. They know that I go over what's going on in the week and then I do the reading. I'll put a timestamp and I'll try to add additional stamps as to when each topic comes up, because there's so many this week. Let's consider an overall theme though. Forgiveness, compassion, sorrow, and being sorrowful, as in sorry, and making atonement and apologies. And I'll tell you why I say that. The Christian calendar, the Hebrew calendar, and the Islamic calendar all have feast days this week surrounding atonement and being sorrowful and forgiveness. All three of them. They're not connected, but of course they're related. If that makes sense. You know, they're not the same feast day. They're not celebrating the same thing in different ways, but they're celebrating the same sentiment, basically, and probably for the same reasons. There was likely, you know, prophets that followed Christian traditions, or at least what was then Christian traditions, because yes, there's all kinds of argument about what that means. And what Christianity means and when it was created. And it's a lot of my people, you know, people of color, Muslim people, that on about the year 325 and the Nicene Tribunal and the Nicene Creed. The Nicene Creed is the Apostles' Creed. Anybody that actually has studied Christianity, not just like an internet philosopher or theologian. There were people being martyred in Africa, North Africa, as early as the year like 100 something, and you can Google that too. So before this Nicene people, I will concede to the fact that white Jesus seems to have been created around that time. By the Nicene Tribunal, the panel, but not Christianity in general. That there were already people who were followers of Christ, who did not mean for a religion to be created in his name, by the way. He was not a Christian. He was not a Christian, and he was a Jew, but he didn't even practice that. He came to tell the Jews that they needed to change their ways and their practices. So, yeah. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit more in detail another time. I was cracking up because my daughter and I went to see Black Klansmen the other day. And, you know, there were a few instances where the Klansmen were like, the Jews killed Jesus. And I just couldn't help but I was cracking up laughing. You know, their concern for this so-called Jesus, whose mother was Palestinian. If you've ever read the lost books of the Bible, you know, born to Palestinian parents. Middle Eastern, basically what we would now consider today, or what they would now consider today, Muslims. Sand in words, as they say. So the fact that they were so concerned with who killed Jesus, and you know, their beliefs, their twisted beliefs, somehow upheld those of Jesus, you know, his peaceful ways, that being a Klansman is somehow equivalent, was just, I just couldn't help but laugh. Anyway, let's get to the week, because again, there's tons. All right, so going into that Christian calendar, the first feast day this week is the Holy Name of the Blessed Virgin Mary. From www.franciscanmedia.org. This feast day, also known as the Most Holy Name of the Blessed Virgin Mary, is a counterpart to the Feast of the Holy Name of Jesus. Both have the possibility of uniting people that are easily divided on other matters. The Feast of the Most Holy Name of Mary began in Spain in 1513, which of course equals 613. I don't have to try to keep proving this to you guys that Mary is associated with 613. The feast day again of Our Lady of Fatima is also on 613, although there is one every 13th of the month from May through October, beginning with the year 1917. The big one, the one where she revealed herself to all the townspeople, was on June 13th, 613. And now we have another 613. And I've pointed these 613s out over and over and over again. I'm doing it again now. All right, I'm doing it again now. Feast of the Most Holy Name of Mary began in Spain in 1513. And in 1671, it was extended to all of Spain and the Kingdom of Naples. In 1683, John Sobieski, King of Poland, brought an army to the outskirts of Vienna to stop the advance of Muslim armies loyal to Muhammad IV of Constantinople. After Sobieski entrusted himself to the Blessed Virgin Mary, he and his soldiers thoroughly defeated the Muslims. Pope Innocent XI extended this feast to the entire church. Mary always points us to God, reminding us of God's infinite goodness. Here comes Archangel Raphael. She helps us to open our hearts to God's ways, wherever those may lead us. Honored under the title Queen of Peace, Mary encourages us to cooperate with Jesus in building a peace based on justice, a peace that respects the fundamental human rights of all peoples. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm on some shit today. I've been on my shit all day. I don't know what it is, something in the air. Just I'm in rare form. Today's Easy E's birthday. And I started out earlier by posting on my Facebook, you know, the picture of him and in honor of him and his birthday. And then I posted something about police brutality. Well, maybe, I don't know, minutes later, no sooner than I could get this stuff up, a cop shoots a man, or I received news, I think it happened last night actually, that a cop has shot a man in his own home, a black man, of course, his own home in Texas, because she entered the home believing it her own. And even after calling backup and waiting and pausing, did not have the clarity of mind to realize that that was somebody else's house, her neighbor's house, shot this man dead. And I've just been posting stuff, not because of that. Again, it's just some kind of weird energy that weird but good energy that I'm dealing with today. And so if it comes across through the reading, oh well, but you know, pardon me. So that was Mary, holy name. I also was going to point out that the year 1671, through which it had originally been extended in Spain, equals 6, which of course is also associated with Mary. And 1683 is 9, which is also associated with Mary. For example, again, the year 1917, the feast day of Our Lady of Fatima, the largest apparition of all time for those who believe in it, equals 9/9. Today also equals 9/9. The day on which I'm doing this reading is 9/7/2018. That's 9 plus 7 plus 2 equals 9, which equals 9. And she's always going to help me to show you who she is, and thereby also showing you who I am, or vice versa. All right, the next holiday on the Christian calendar is September 14th, the Triumph of the Holy Cross, also known as the Exaltation of the Holy Cross. And for that, also franciscanmedia.org, for those who want to look it up themselves. Early in the 4th century, Saint Helena, mother of the Roman Emperor Constantine, went to Jerusalem in search of the holy places of Christ's life. She raised the 2nd century temple of Aphrodite. Aphrodite also connected to Venus, connected to Isis, Mary, Mother, Divine. Further, you want to go all the way back to who? To when the universe was black and void, and all of a sudden it went and named itself who? In honor of that sound. You know, same being in different vibrations. Okay, so she raised this temple to Aphrodite, which tradition held was built over the Savior's tomb. Why would Aphrodite be built over Jesus' tomb? Again, it's his mother, it's the same thing. Her son built the Basilica of the Holy Sepulchre. Sepulchre is one of those, like a wand. It's like a wand. I'll leave it there for now. He built the sepulchre on that spot. During the excavation, workers found 3 crosses. Legend has it that one on which Jesus died was identified when its touch healed a dying woman. Now, wait a minute. I have to go back. Because I just realized I said a sepulcher is a wand. I was picturing a scepter, and speaking of a sepulcher is a tomb. And that makes sense. That makes, well, yeah, they're talking about where this guy was. They're talking about a basilica. A sepulcher is a tomb, a crypt, basically. So I apologize for that. Anyway, the cross immediately became an object of veneration, right? As soon as they found this cross, it healed a dying woman. And now everybody's like, oh, this cross, right? So they're all honoring it. At a Good Friday celebration in Jerusalem toward the end of the 4th century, according to eyewitnesses, the wood was taken out of its silver container and placed it on a table with the inscription Pilate had ordered placed above Jesus' head. Then, quote, all the people passed through one by one. All of them bowed down, touching the cross and the inscription, first with their foreheads, then with their eyes. And after kissing the cross, they move on, end quote. To this day, the Eastern churches, Catholic and Orthodox alike, celebrate the exaltation of the Holy Cross on the September anniversary of the Basilica's dedication. The feast entered the Western calendar in the 7th century after Emperor Heraclius, Heraclius, which of course sounds like Hercules, which is connected to Heru, and Heru, now known as Horus, but Isis has gone by Heru and similar throughout history as well. She is the goddess of 10,000 names, after all, and of course that is connected to Hera in Greek mythology, who is said to be Hercules' stepmother. But Hera and the true Hera, the African Hera that predates the Egyptian Hera, that predates the Greek one, from where Greek got theirs, her son also going by Heru. So this is a derivative of that name. It's Heraclius. So it's almost Hercules. Anyway, Emperor Heraclius recovered the cross from the Persians. So I spoke about the Persians before. They were not an enemy, right, in past stories. In fact, the Magi was said to be Persians, or are said to be Persians if we look them up today. But in this case, the Persians had taken these crosses. So the Emperor Heraclius recovered the cross from the Persians, who had carried it off in the year 614, 15 years earlier. According to the story, the emperor intended to carry the cross back into Jerusalem himself, but he was unable to move forward until he took off his imperial garb and became a barefoot pilgrim. So he had to humble himself before he was allowed to carry Jesus's cross, so what was believed to be the cross on which Jesus had died. Jesus, of course, having been a humble man himself. The emperor had to be the same in order to carry his cross. He couldn't be dressed as somebody who was better than. The cross is today the universal image of Christian belief. Countless generations of artists have turned it into a thing of beauty to be carried in procession or worn as jewelry. To the eyes of the first Christians, it had no beauty. It stood outside too many city walls, decorated only with decaying corpses, as a threat to anyone who defied Rome's authority, including Christians who refused to sacrifice to Roman gods. Although believers spoke of the cross as the instrument of salvation, it seldom appeared in Christian art unless disguised as an anchor or the chiro until after Constantine's edict of toleration. So until this occurred, until this feast day began on this order, the cross was not honored as something that was, beautiful. It was honored as something, I guess, more sacred and even scary. The following day after the Feast of the Holy Cross is Our Lady of Sorrows, September 15th. So this is more in keeping with the theme of the week of all of the atonement and forgiveness and compassion. For a while, there were two feasts in honor of the Sorrowful Mother, one going back to the 15th century, 15 equals 6, and the other to the 17th century. For a while, both were celebrated by the Universal Church, one on the Friday before Palm Sunday and the other in September. The principal biblical references to Mary's sorrows are in Luke 2:35 and John 19:26 through 27. The Lucian passage is Simeon's prediction about a sword piercing Mary's soul. The Johannine passage relates Jesus' words from the cross to Mary and to the beloved disciple. Many early church writers interpret the sword as Mary's sorrows, especially as she saw Jesus die on the cross. Thus, the two passages are brought together as prediction and fulfillment. St. Ambrose in particular sees Mary as a sorrowful yet powerful figure at the cross. Mary stood fearlessly at the cross while others fled. Mary looked on her son's wounds with pity, but saw in them the salvation of the world. As Jesus hung on the cross, Mary did not fear to be killed, but offered herself as well to her persecutors. John's account of Jesus' death is highly symbolic. When Jesus gives the beloved disciple to Mary, we are invited to appreciate Mary's role in the church. She symbolizes the church. The beloved disciple represents all believers. As Mary mothered Jesus, she is now mother to all of his followers. Furthermore, as Jesus died, he handed over his spirit. Mary and the Spirit cooperate in begetting new children of God, almost an echo of Luke's account of Jesus' conception. Christians can trust that they will continue to experience the caring presence of Mary and Jesus' Spirit throughout their lives and throughout history. On the Islamic calendar, the 11th, 9/11, but it's being recognized by the United Arab Emirates this year as an observation, and the day where the government's going to be closed in honor of it is going to be September 13th, is the Hijri New Year, or the Islamic New Year's Day. So you can say it's the 11th, you could say it's the 12th, the 13th, it's up to you. It's this week. And to tell you a little bit about that, I'm going to go to something called timeanddate.com, and there won't be anything else that I go over that I can think of after this on the Islamic calendar until November 19th, the Prophet Muhammad's birthday, Of course, the same day that 2 years ago, when I first began this channel, Osiris appeared to me and told me to celebrate his birthday, and is also my own Divine Masculine's birthday, November 19th. Yeah, timeanddate.com. Muharram, Islamic New Year. What happens during Muharram? Different Islamic denominations, Shia and Sunni, and cultures do different things to mark Muharram. Fasting varies among different Muslim communities. Some Muslims fast on or around the 10th day of Muharram, also known as the day of Ashura, to mourn the death of the Prophet Muhammad's grandson, Hussein ibn Ali. Some mosques have free meals or nazar around the 9th to the 11th days of Muharram. In Iraq, some Shia Muslims make a pilgrimage to the Imam Hussein shrine on the site of the grave of Hussein ibn Ali. In Iran, Tazia, or condolence theater, are performed. During Muharram, these take the form of reenactments of the Battle of Karbala. In South Asia, similar events are known as such as Marsiya, Noha, and Soaz. Also, Tabuk or Tabut. In Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, they are known as Hosei or Husei, and are attended by the people from a variety of religions and cultures. Shia Muslims, particularly those in Afghanistan, Bahrain, India, Iraq, Lebanon, and Pakistan, take part in remembrance parades, or matam, or some may say matham. During matam, men gather in large groups on the streets to take part in ritual chest beating. Some people also beat themselves with zanjir, metal chains fixed into handles, but this practice is controversial and has been banned by some civic and Islamic authorities. And this goes on to talk about what's open and what's closed, and the observation of the actual day, which again, according to the United Arab Emirates this year, will be September 13th. September 13th is something else too. Now that I'm thinking about it, and I can't recall what. Similarly to the Islamic calendar, on the 9th of September also, at sundown, we will begin Rosh Hashanah, and also the days of repentance leading up to Yom Kippur. The 9th is also the new moon. I'll go into that in a minute when I talk about the celestial system events. As I was saying, there's so many things this week. And on the Hebrew calendar, it's the first day of the month of Tishri. So I'll tell you a little bit about that, beginning with www.shabbat.org, the Jewish month of Tishri. Tishri is the first month of the Jewish year and is full of momentous and meaningful days of celebration, beginning with the high holidays. In this month, we celebrate Rosh Hashanah, the 10 days of repentance, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Simchat Torah. Each one is filled with its own meaningful customs and rituals. Some are serious, awesome days set aside for reflection and soul searching. Some are joyous days full of happy and cheerful celebration. But all of these days throughout the month of Tishri are opportunities to connect, to be inspired, and to become more fulfilled and in tune with our inner selves. Tishri is considered the quote-unquote head of the year and the reservoir from which we draw our strength and our inspiration throughout the year ahead. The 12th is the Feast of Gedalia. On Wednesday, September 12, 2018, the 3rd of Tishri, all men and women over the age of bar or bat mitzvah age will fast from dawn until nightfall in commemoration of the assassination of Gedalia, governor of Judea. So I'll tell you a little bit about him, also from Shabbat.org. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylonia, had accomplished his purpose. He had completely subdued the kingdom of Judah and destroyed its capital of Jerusalem and its most sacred shrine, the Holy Temple. He had slain or captured most of the royal family and the nobility of the land. The upper classes of the Jewish people, including the leaders of the priesthood and the chief civil and military officers, were led captive en masse to Babylon. Many of them were mercilessly put to death in Riblah. Judah was crushed and bereaved of its best sons. However, Nebuchadnezzar did not wish to turn the land of Judah into a complete desert. He permitted the poorer classes to remain in Judah, to till the soil and to tend their vineyards. Over them, Nebuchadnezzar had appointed Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, as governor. The prophet Jeremiah had been allowed to choose between remaining in Judah and going to Babylon as an honored guest of the Babylonian royal house. He chose to remain with his brethren on the holy soil. Jeremiah went to Mizpah, a short way north of Jerusalem, where Gedaliah had established the seat of his governorship and offered him his fullest support. Gedaliah gratefully accepted, and Mizpah now became also the spiritual center of the people. Gedaliah was a wise man, gentle and modest. He zealously began to encourage the people to cultivate the fields and the vineyards, and thus lay the foundation of security. Under the wise administration of Gedaliah, the Jewish people began to prosper. Its fame began to spread abroad. Many Jews who had fled two places of safety in neighboring lands during the war of destruction were attracted by the news of the revival of the Jewish community in Judah. They came to Gedaliah in Mizpah and were warmly welcomed by him. The Jewish governor exhorted his brethren to remain loyal to the king of Babylonia and promised them peace and security. His advice was well taken. The Babylonian garrison stationed in the land did not molest them. On the contrary, it offered them protection against unfriendly neighbors. The young Jewish commonwealth was well on its way to recovery when it was suddenly struck by a cowardly deed of treachery and bloodshed. Among the refugees who had joined Gedaliah in Mizpah was Ishmael, the son of Nathaniah, a descendant of the royal house of Zedekiah, the last king of Judah. Ishmael was an ambitious man who would stop at nothing to attain his goal. The honor and success that Gedaliah had won filled him with cruel jealousy. Ishmael began to plot against Gedaliah. He found an ally in the king of Ammon, who had been following with apprehension the growth of the new Jewish colony. The conspiracy became known to Yohanan, the son of Kareah. And part of my New York accent, it's spelled Kareah. If you want to look it up or pronounce it differently yourself. A devoted officer of Gedaliah. Yohanan warned the governor of the danger threatening his person. Gedaliah, however, being of a true and generous nature, shrank from believing such treachery. When Yohanan offered to slay Ishmael secretly before the latter could carry out his evil plans, Gedaliah indignantly rejected the proposal. In the meantime, this reminds me of Malcolm always when this story in this part, you know, like when his truest and most loyal followers were like, you know, let us protect you, let us take these people out. And he said no, and he still wanted to, you know, preach publicly. He still wanted to go to the Autobahn and do his weekly thing. This is how this was. Anyway, I'm sorry. I tend to deviate. You guys know me by now. Anyway, in the meantime, Ishmael bided his time before the long opportunity which he was waiting for presented itself. He was invited by the governor to a feast at Mizpah on Rosh Hashanah. Ishmael arrived at the banquet in the company of 10 followers. So there were 11 of them. During the feast, the ruthless band attacked and slew the governor. Having assassinated their host, they commenced a terrible massacre. Ishmael murdered many prominent followers of Gedaliah and put the sword to small Chaldean garrison stationed at Mizpah. His murderous deed accomplished, Ishmael left Mizpah with many captives, heading for Ammon, Ammon. Yohanan and a few of his brave men had escaped the massacre, for they were not in the Mizpah at that time. When Yohanan learned of the terrible tragedy, be rallied additional help. It's supposed to be he, I guess. He rallied. It says BE. He rallied additional help and pursued the assassin. Overtaking Ishmael near Gibeon in Benjamin, Yohanan succeeded in freeing the captives, but Ishmael, with a few followers, managed to escape the land of Ammon. The plight of the Jews was now sad indeed. The assassination of Gedaliah and the Babylonian garrison would draw the wrath of Nebuchadnezzar upon the remnant of the people in Judah. They were sorely afraid of his punishment. Yet, whither could they run? The only haven of refuge seemed to be Egypt, where the hand of Nebuchadnezzar had not reached yet. But that country was hateful to them. Although some 900 years had passed since their ancestors had been liberated from Egypt after centuries of slavery, Egypt was still regarded with aversion. Their despair and fright was so great, however, that the poor people did decide to seek escape in Egypt and to set out on their way southward. The hard-pressed Jews halted in Beit Lechem and turned to Jeremiah for advice. The faithful prophet, who had shared in all their trials and misfortunes and had clung to them with unwavering affection, was still among them. To him, they now turned with their anxious eyes, promising to abide by whatever counsel he might give them. For 10 days, Jeremiah prayed to God, and finally he received a divine message, which he immediately told to the assembled people. Quote, "Thus says the God of Israel, if you will still dwell in this land, I will build you and not destroy you, and I will plant you and not pluck you up. Fear not the king of Babylonia, of whom you are afraid, for I am with you to save you. But if you say, we will not dwell in this land, disobeying the voice of your God, saying, no, but we will go into the land of Egypt, then it shall come to pass that the sword which you feared shall overtake you there in the land of Egypt, and the famine whereof you were afraid shall follow close after you in Egypt, and there you shall die. God hath spoken to you, O remnant of Judah. Go not to Egypt. Know you with certainty, for I have warned you this day." But Jeremiah's words fell on deaf ears. The people had already formed their resolution and had hoped only that the prophet would confirm it. In spite of their solemn pledge to Jeremiah that they would follow his advice, they accused the prophet of plotting together with his disciple Baruch, the son of Neriah, to deliver them into the hands of the Chaldeans. Then they all proceeded on their way to Egypt, forcing Jeremiah and Baruch to accompany them. When the refugees reached the border of Egypt, they halted. Here, Jeremiah once again warned his brethren that the safety they sought in Egypt would be short-lived. He predicted that before long, Egypt would be conquered by Nebuchadnezzar and destroyed. The prophet further warned them of the dangers besetting them in mixing with the idolatrous Egyptians. If they should return to idolatry, which had been the cause of their misfortunes in the past, they would seal their fate beyond hope. Unfortunately, the prophet's warnings and entreaties were in vain. The Jewish refugees settled in Egypt and before long abandoned their faith in God. They sank to the level of the heathen practices of the Egyptians there. A few years later, there was a political upheaval in Egypt when Pharaoh Hophra, H-O-P-H-R-A, was assassinated. Nebuchadnezzar took advantage of the situation. He invaded and destroyed the land, and most of the Jewish refugees perished in this invasion and war. Thus, Jeremiah's dreadful prophecy came true again. Where and when the aged prophet died is not known with certainty. It is believed that he and his faithful disciple Baruch spent their last years with their exiled brethren in Babylon. In memory of the assassination of Gedaliah and the tragedy that it brought upon our brethren in those days, so soon after the destruction of the Holy Temple, we fast on the 3rd day of Tishrei, the fast of Gedaliah. Oh, goodness. I skipped over Rosh Hashanah. So Rosh Hashanah, again, is going to begin on September 9th this year, which is the same day as the new moon in Virgo. What is Rosh Hashanah? Okay, it's the Jewish New Year, basically, the Hebrew New Year. It is the birthday, according to Hebrew tradition, though, of the universe. And to take it further, at least in this writing from Shabbat.org, the day that God created Adam and Eve, which is a little interesting. I'll be nice. Interesting, to say the least, because the Torah, in great part before it was manipulated, had tons of stuff on Lilith. So it is not traditional or the original or ancient Hebrew or Jewish belief that the universe began with Adam and Eve. The way it was originally written, the universe began with two equal beings. And as the story goes, the feminine one got way ahead of herself and wanted, rather than to be with the man who had been created to be her equal and her husband, to be with God the Father instead, and was punished for her behavior. And subsequently, Lilith, that whole portion was pulled out of the Bible and the Torah. But that was why it said that God had to hurry up and make Adam a new woman. And that's where Eve comes from, in the rib. So rather than making another equivalent one out of clay, like he had started the first two, he had to do quick, fast, in a hurry, make one. So he pulled one of Adam's ribs out and made Eve. That's the way it's written. You guys can look this stuff up, of course, in your own time too. So I'm only clarifying it because it says that Rosh Hashanah is the birthday of the universe, comma, the day God created Adam and Eve. So, I couldn't say that knowing it not to be at least originally true, according to Jewish tradition. When is Rosh Hashanah? Well, it's the first 2 days of the Jewish New Year. So it's not just one day. It's Tishrei 1 and 2, beginning at sundown on the eve of Tishrei 1. Rosh Hashanah 2018 begins at sundown on September 9th and continues through nightfall on September 11th. So that's why you've heard me talk about both of these days over the past couple of weeks in connection with Rosh Hashanah. Again, all of these days, beginning with the 9th and Rosh Hashanah through 9/19, September 19th, Yom Kippur, will be days of remembrance. So that's the 10 days of remembrance, the 10th through the 19th. Every day is one. So next week we'll talk about Yom Kippur, and that'll be another week where we're discussing compassion and forgiveness, I'm sure. But the last day for which this reading is, because it covers or spans Sunday, the 9th through Saturday the 15th, is the 15th. And on that day is something called Shabbat Shavah, S-H-U-V-A-H. And it's simple. Shabbat Shavah basically means the return or the Sabbath of repentance. And it refers to Shabbat, that is the Shabbat or the Sabbath that occurs during the 10 days of repentance, but is between and not including the 2 consecutive days of Rosh Hashanah and the day of Yom Kippur. So that's all that means. It's like a special Sabbath day, elevated above a typical Saturday and Sabbath day. But other than that, not necessarily a quote unquote holiday. All right, so that's it for the Jewish calendar. Now we're going to the celestial system, beginning with the 9th. Okay, September 9th at 5:25 a.m., Venus enters Scorpio. And also on September 9th at 2:01 p.m., the new moon, 17 degrees Virgo, 00. That should be nice. September 10th at 8:56 p.m., so it's another 11, 8:11 rather, there. Mars enters, or re-enters, maybe I should say, Aquarius. Is right now it is in shadow, having gone direct last week, in shadow in Capricorn, leaving Capricorn, going back into Aquarius. And lastly, for this week, September 12th at 3:55 a.m., Jupiter sextile Pluto. Now I'm realizing I posted something on Facebook earlier asking, am I forgetting something about Malcolm on this day? Because this morning I started out rather early with my post on Facebook. I posted about Malcolm. And then later on in the afternoon, I got an email from this site, Push Black, that goes over like Black history, you know, this day in Black history type of stuff. And they were talking about Malcolm. And that's when I said, okay, I was moved to post about Malcolm this morning out of the blue. And now I'm getting this. Is there something I'm forgetting about Malcolm? Maybe it was a reminder of what this week was, you know. Now, having just read that story about the prophet Jeremiah and Gedaliah, and how it tends to remind me of Malcolm in that instance. All right, so September 9th, to sort of regroup and pull myself together. Again, at 5:25 a.m., Venus enters Scorpio. So I'm going to www.tarot.com to find out what that means. Venus in Scorpio, intense, passionate, committed. And Venus will be there from September 9th through October 31st, 2018. I think she actually goes retrograde in Scorpio this year before the year's over too, if I remember correctly. Maybe they'll mention that here. I don't know. All right. So anyway, the Black Widow, the mistress, skeletons in your romantic closet, secretive about money and love, a sexy, magnetic, deliciously irresistible, intimate encounter. A healing and transforming bonding experience. Venus in Scorpio has the power to elicit all of this and more. Astrology considers Scorpio to be a tough placement for beautiful and sweet Venus. Scorpio isn't concerned with superficiality and prefers chasing after a transcendental kind of love. The Scorpion likes to get below the surface and to examine issues of power, fear, sex, and desire. When Venus is in Scorpio, Venus trades in social niceties for digging deeply and sparking needed change. When Venus is in Scorpio, Venus is about relationships and is sociable, friendly, and affectionate. Scorpio is about passion and likes to dive headfirst into love. This means we'll crave meaningful and intense experiences when Venus is in Scorpio. Depth and intimacy become more important, urging us to trade in frivolous flings for long-lasting romance. Love can border on obsessive when Venus is in this sign, compelling us to go all in when it comes to matters of the heart. Venus in Scorpio is a time when we'll want to shine a light on the shadows of our relationship. Those nagging thoughts that we've been pushing aside to make peace, well, they become impossible to ignore when Venus and Scorpio get together. It's a time to go beneath the surface, to find the truth, and to hold it up to the light of day. We'll try to figure out what we can do to make it work, or if it's time to let it go. Now, when I read the Judgment card, for example, in the tarot, for me, the Judgment card, I always say, represents the planet Pluto and the sign of Scorpio. And as it relates to relationships, what it means for me and to me is that we've come to a crossroad where we have to decide, where do we go from here, if anywhere? Or is this the end of the road for us? That's what this is describing here, okay? We'll try to figure out what we can do to make it work, or if it's time to let go. That's Judgment. This transit gives our relationships a major reality check, whether we want one or not. Speaking of, for just to deviate for a second while I'm thinking about this, the way that I read cards, as opposed to reading cards in general or anybody else reading cards, the hashtag creepy deck, which I think is formerly known as Amira's Love Oracle. A client of mine wrote me the other day, oh, I bought those cards. I said, oh, great. I don't tell anybody not to buy them, but I was happy that she got cards and she was wanting to work with something. But I said, with regard to those cards in specific, I don't tell anybody not to get them, but I don't tell anybody to get them either. Again, the ones that I've purchased, if you've never heard me tell this story before, they arrive with a dark, funky energy, and that's why we call them the hashtag creepy deck, because even my viewers could feel it. People that were, deep empaths were like, ooh, what are the, my daughter, right, as soon as I opened them, she literally said, ooh, what are those? Because she's psychic too. She's a Scorpio. So one of the other things that pissed me off about the cards, actually the thing that pissed me off about the cards, because the funky energy didn't, I mean, I can clean that. I know how to, get by that or around that. But what pissed me off about the cards was the inaccurate descriptions, and particularly twin flame, because people being misguided, misled, misinformed, and misinformation being spread around and becoming sort of like the law of the land really makes me angry. And her description of quote unquote twin flame in that oracle is an effortless relationship, which anybody who is in any sort of divine union, soulmate union, and considers himself a twin flame, no less, knows that is absolutely, utterly wrong. It is not an effortless relationship. That defeats the whole purpose, life purpose, no pun intended, of a so-called twin flame. So it really pisses me off. And when I read those cards, the meanings that I give, they are not at all the meanings from the book. Those are 100% always my intuitive meanings. Now, do I mind if those of you who watch me, connect to the same meanings if you, pick up the cards or purchase the cards? No, but just know that that's what those meanings are. They have nothing to do with the cards. They have nothing to do, when I pick up young female and I say it means Jupiter, that has nothing to do with the book or whatever. That's me. That's me. Similar to how I connect judgment with Pluto, and maybe perhaps others do not. All right, so getting back to this. When Venus is in Scorpio, it brings also a power struggle and money concerns out into the open. Subtle issues become more obvious than they were before. How money is spent becomes a focus in partnerships where financial resources are shared. This could also be a time when we have stronger interest in making financial investments or decisions about loans, insurance, or other areas of our lives having to do with money. Yes, Venus in Scorpio can be pretty heavy, but it can also be truly amazing. All this intensity leads to a stronger bond. So if you're up for the challenge, both emotionally and physically, this could end up being a transformative and sexy time that ends up bringing you and your partner much closer together. Now, I would say, separate and aside from this, if you are someone who has Venus and Scorpio in your chart, or if you are ruled by Venus, if you are a Libra, Taurus, or Gemini, or if you're a Scorpio, then I think that all of this will apply to you even more so. Or if you're somebody like me, in addition to being ruled by Venus, but also separate and apart from that, you're somebody like me who is or has Jupiter in Scorpio in their chart. Jupiter is still there. Okay, Jupiter is still going to be there, and it will be there throughout this whole period where Venus is there. So basically, she's joining him, and they'll be there together because Jupiter stays there, I think, till November 8th. And like I said, Venus is going to be there throughout October. She leaves October 31st, which is the last day of October, obviously, and Halloween. I won't talk too much about the new moon in Virgo, only because I'll probably do a separate reading, and this one is long enough and talks about enough things. But I do want to say, of course, new moons are about new beginnings and new starts. They bring a new energy, a new feminine energy that calls us to surrender. And Virgo, the energy of Virgo, or the sign of Virgo, rules health, and things that are habitual. So like our routines, or you might call them habits, good and bad. So this could be a time where you try to come up with, it's an earth sign, right? So they're all about practicality. This could be a sign where you try to come up with, practical ways that you can bring into your life, what's the word? Implement into your life or your lifestyle, healthier habits or new habits, to the contrary, let go of habits that are unhealthy, that are bad for you, right? Maybe addictions and stuff like that. The goal being improved health, right? Increased well-being. And this can be physical, mental, and stuff. And actually, I think it's already started now that I think about it, because I told you I was been in rare form all day. I don't know what's up with me, but anyway, I'm not knocking it, because it's been a good energy. It's just a weird energy. I was having a conversation with a Facebook friend / client / viewer, subscriber, and she posted actually that she was starting on 9/9. So that other special day, the day of the new moon and the day of Rosh Hashanah and the Islamic New Year and all these things that they begin. She's starting I think it was a group, some sort of health group. And she was saying, like, inbox her for details. So I commented, I'm going on Monday to see a vegetarian. I'm doing the same thing like I did with Sepulchre and Scepter. A vegetarian licensed dietitian, because I've just had enough with internet doctors that know less about health and science than I myself even do. And I don't claim to know much about some of the things that I want to get deeper into, and some of the corrections, the health improvements that I personally want to make. I just don't want to be listen to people that don't have doctorates, or even give me a nurse at least. Let her be the one that's posting some of this stuff. These fake doctors that we've all become, and so-called experts that people have become, and they just forwarding misinformation around. It pisses me off. So I'm going to a licensed dietitian who happens to be a vegetarian on Monday. And then I thought it was today, the 7th, but it's actually the 17th next week, after this new moon in Virgo, that may push me to be more practical about my health. I'm also going back to CrossFit. So for 8 weeks of hardcore training. If you've ever looked into CrossFit or know anything about it, it's basically everything. It's running, it's jumping rope. It is a lot of weightlifting, a lot of squats, a lot of squat thrusts, also known as burpees, all of these things. So, yeah, I think that this energy is already surrounding us, was my point. All right. So other than that, I'm going to move from September 9th at 2:01 p.m., the new moon, 17 degrees, Virgo 00, to September 10th at 8:56 p.m. when Mars enters Aquarius. And for this, I have gone to www.elitedaily.com. Mars in Aquarius 2018 is here, and it's time to become more free-spirited than ever. So we saw that show up in our reading last week, particularly for the masculine, that he was in this trapped place with the Capricorn energy, that restrictive Saturn, and he's being released and moving into Aquarius along with Mars this week, right? That's what our reading showed. I think especially the love reading, although it turned up in both. This is saying the same thing. When Mars makes a move through a new zodiac sign, your instincts are flush with fresh purpose. This planet rules over desire, sexuality, drive, passion, anger, and everything that makes you an animal at heart. When rationality fails to clarify your impulses, Mars is always at work, encouraging you to react in a way that may not be entirely socially acceptable. Mars in Aquarius 2018 begins on May 16th and continues until August 12th. And the transition will infuse this summer with its own force of nature. I think they meant Mars retrograde there, from May 16th through August. I don't know what they meant. Anyway, because we're going back into it, so I'm not sure what that was about. The fixed air sign, I have no connection to any of these websites. I just like type them in, and the first one that pops up that feels decent, I don't get a funky feeling about it, I click on it and read from there. This fixed air sign is deeply embedded with its own uniqueness. If they are asked to abandon their eccentricities and to assimilate, they will rebel. However, this doesn't mean that they don't care about the community at large. In fact, cooperating with others and working towards a greater good is a central theme to the Mars in Aquarius personality. I am a Mars in Aquarius personality. My Mars in my chart is in Aquarius. My moon is also Aquarius. My south node is also Aquarius. And I think I've got some other Aquarius that I'm not thinking of also. So I'm one of these people. They believe everyone deserves basic human rights that allow them to safely exist on their own terms. If those rights are infringed upon, this normally detached sign will be roused into a wild fury. They tend to battle through life with cleverness, logic, and communication rather than a physical brawl. However, don't underestimate the depth of Mars in Aquarius intensity. Their words are always as sharp as the blade of a knife. Mars in Aquarius will inspire you to be proud of what makes you unique. While it's normal to feel like hiding certain aspects of yourself in order to fit in, Mars is in Aquarius wants you to bear the truth of your individuality for all the world to see. There's nobody in the world like you. You were given strengths, talents, flaws, and weaknesses that nobody else has. Your qualities exist for a reason, and if you don't use them, our world will be lacking a necessary ingredient. During this time, you must listen closely to your inner voice and do exactly what it says. Do not let expectations of others tarnish the purity of yourself. Don't allow someone else's idea of who you are dictate the steps that you take. Instead, forge your own path. During Mars in Aquarius, you'll be swept by an urgent desire to remain free. Any inhibiting restrictions, narrow-minded belief systems, or constraining routines will make you feel like you're trapped. Instead, you will want to work to break free from your cage and to run wild. This will feel incredibly liberating, like there's nothing in the world that can hold you back. Earlier, one of my Facebook friends posted about who would like to be a part of or see like a vegan, I forgot how he worded it, like a vegan farm or something, and an animal reserve or whatever. And I said, like, I would absolutely love to see it. I personally couldn't be a part of it because of, food Nazis and other things like that come with the vegan belief system. Any inhibiting restrictions, narrow-minded belief systems, or I know my flaws or strengths. I mean, I guess that could be looked at either way. I have Mars in Aquarius, and so I'm like this. And I know how I am, whether it's considered a flaw or it's considered a strength, that I cannot be around people that may be judgmental or stifling or whatever. I could end up in jail. And I know that about myself. So I said, I couldn't personally be a part of it, but I would love to see somebody do that. Somebody who is capable, whose talent that is. I'd love to see them, be able to do something like positive like that. And I'll, keep doing my thing, basically. That's the type of situation that this is talking about. If there's something that threatens to tamper with your energy, you will construct a barrier that blocks it. That's what I did. It wasn't like a conscious thought, like I'm going to construct a barrier, but this is my personality from within. If someone tries to bring you down, you'll avoid spending time with that person. Above all, your freedom will become the most important thing. Whatever obscures your wide and expansive view of the possibilities that have been laid out before you will be promptly removed. Also, there's going to be speaking out against injustice. If you're normally the type of person who holds their tongue when they see injustice take place, you'll be surprised by how outspoken you may become when you witness abuse. Mars in Aquarius believes that those who remain quiet in the midst of mistreatment are complicit in violence. Amen. Therefore, you will not be able to look away when you see someone suffering. You will passionately fight for what's right, letting no one get away with harming others. This might land you in an uncomfortable situation, or maybe a few, and perhaps you'll gain a few enemies. However, you'll be able to sleep much better at night knowing that you did all you could do to rectify the pain in the world. Let Mars in Aquarius teach you how to become a more noble and progressive person. A better future is out there for us all. Remember to always keep it in mind. And lastly, as it relates to the celestial system, Jupiter sextile Pluto. For this, I'm going to go to, it looks like astrologyking.com. I don't think we've ever read from him before, but here we go. Transiting Jupiter sextile Pluto. It brings us success through positive change. You do not have to force the change or to react to unexpected change. This is a natural development in your life associated with increased power and influence, spiritual and personal growth, wealth creation, and professional advancement. Powerful forces are working behind the scenes to promote you to a higher level. You can get a promotion at work with more of a leadership role. Your investments may be maturing or experiencing a growth spurt. Perhaps it will be you that initiates some positive change in your life to help another person or a group of people. Maybe because of Mars in Aquarius, right? That'll help you with this Jupiter thing. A strong urge to reform something in your life will coincide with an opportunity to do just that. Go with the flow and take advantage of the opportunities that open in front of you. This should be a time of great satisfaction with your achievements. Your success should be accompanied by more influence and popularity. It is also possible for your life to be transformed by a person of power and influence. You may come into contact with a charismatic leader in education, business, religion, or spirituality that has a profound influence on your direction in life. And that, my dears, is the last of what's going on this week. But I think it's taken about an hour to talk about it. So I'm going to end this here. I'll upload, I don't know what I'm going to call it, what we need to know for the week, divine beings, divine unions, quote unquote, twin flames, what we need to know for the week. I'm not sure yet, but I'll upload this alone and I'll be back with the general reading, just the cards. See you guys again soon. Namaste.